I want you to notice something right now. There's a discomfort somewhere in your body. Maybe your shoulders are tense. Maybe you need water. Maybe there's a task sitting undone that's creating a low hum of anxiety in your chest. Now notice what happens next. That small recognition followed immediately by nothing. The signal arrives, registers, and then dissolves into static. You acknowledge the need, and then you return to scrolling, to staring, to existing in this peculiar suspended state where awareness and action have divorced each other completely. This is where I've lived. This is the territory I'm mapping for you now. Let me describe the architecture of this trap. It begins with what feels like simple procrastination. You'll handle it later. You'll get to it when you have more energy. But later never materializes, and the energy never replenishes, because you're caught in a cycle that's feeding on itself. Your nervous system is not broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, but in an environment it was never designed for. It's treating your everyday life as a sustained emergency, and it's responded the only way ancient biology knows how, by shutting you down to conserve resources. This shutdown doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It arrives quietly, incrementally. First, the dishes stay in the sink an extra day. Then the laundry pile grows. Then you realize you've been wearing the same clothes for longer than you'd admit to anyone. Each small surrender feels insignificant in isolation, but together they're constructing a prison made of postponement. The cruelty is that you can see it happening. You're not unconscious or unaware. You watch yourself make the decision not to get up, not to clean, not to call back, not to follow through. And with each observation comes a fresh layer of shame. You know better. You should do better. But knowing changes nothing, and the gap between knowledge and action becomes its own source of suffering. Here's what I need you to understand. This isn't a character defect. This is a nervous system that has learned, through repeated exposure to stress it cannot resolve, that the safest option is to minimize your presence in the world. It's a biological strategy that worked perfectly for our ancestors facing short-term physical threats. Play dead, lower your heart rate, become invisible to the predator, survive. But you're not facing a predator. You're facing rent, deadlines, expectations, inflammation, loneliness, information overload, and the grinding awareness that you're supposed to be optimizing every aspect of your existence. These threats don't pass. They compound. And so your emergency response, never given a chance to complete its cycle, becomes your default operating system. The numbness you feel isn't absence. It's active suppression. Your brain is working incredibly hard to keep you disconnected from your body because your body has become the storage unit for everything you haven't processed. Every unresolved conversation, every ignored boundary violation, every moment you smiled when you wanted to scream, it's all archived in your tissues, your fascia, your gut. To re-enter your body would mean feeling all of that at once. So you don't. You float above it, observing from a distance, treating yourself like a malfunctioning appliance you no longer have the manual for. This creates a feedback loop that tightens with each rotation. The more you ignore your needs, the quieter those needs become, until you've normalized a baseline of depletion that would send someone else into crisis mode. You become fluent in functioning at 20% capacity. You build your entire life around this diminished state, and then you wonder why nothing feels vibrant anymore. The world sees the output and makes its judgments. They see someone who can't seem to get it together, someone who's always behind, always canceling, always operating in crisis mode. They offer productivity hacks and motivational speeches because they're trying to fix the wrong problem. They think you need better systems. What you actually need is permission to feel safe in your own skin again. But here's the part that nobody tells you, the part that I'm only now beginning to grasp. You cannot think your way out of a nervous system problem. You cannot logic yourself into feeling safe. The prefrontal cortex, that beautiful reasoning machine in your skull, has no jurisdiction over the ancient brainstem that's currently running the show. You've been trying to willpower your way through a biological adaptation. It's like trying to talk yourself out of flinching when something flies at your face. The response happens before conscious thought can intervene. So what do you do when the barrier isn't external but internal? When the thing keeping you frozen is the very system that's supposed to keep you alive? You start smaller than you think you need to. Smaller than feels productive. Smaller than your inner critic will accept as legitimate progress. The path out isn't through massive overhaul or dramatic transformation. It's through the repetitive, unglamorous work of sending your nervous system new information. You're teaching it, through lived experience rather than logical argument, that movement is possible without catastrophe. This means you might start with something as minimal as placing one hand on your chest and breathing for 60 seconds. Not to calm down, not to fix anything, but simply to practice the act of directing your attention into your body without immediately fleeing. This means you might clean one single item, not the whole kitchen, one fork, and then you stop. You're not trying to solve the mess. You're trying to rebuild the neural pathway between intention and execution. You're proving to yourself that you can still affect your environment, even minimally. This means you might send one text message, not to everyone you've been avoiding, to one person. Maybe just thinking of you. You're not trying to repair all your relationships. You're trying to remember what connection feels like when it's not weighed down by guilt. The free state thrives on all or nothing thinking. It tells you that if you can't do it perfectly, completely, impressively, then you shouldn't do it at all. So you do nothing. And the nothing compounds, and the freeze deepens. You have to become willing to do things badly, to clean badly, to show up badly, to communicate badly. Because bad execution is still execution, and execution is what breaks the spell. Your nervous system needs evidence, not promises. It needs the felt experience of taking action and surviving it, of making a small change and discovering that the world didn't punish you for it, of inhabiting your body for just a moment and finding that it's uncomfortable but not unbearable. This is not quick. This is not satisfying to the part of you that wants to fast forward past the hard part and emerge transformed. But transformation isn't a lightning strike. It's erosion in reverse. It's the patient accumulation of small moments where you chose differently. You'll have setbacks, days where the freeze returns with full force and you can't even manage the one fork, the one breath, the one text. This doesn't erase your progress. The nervous system doesn't learn in a straight line. It learns through repetition and pattern recognition, and setbacks are part of the pattern. What matters is that you keep returning, not with perfection, not with superhuman discipline, just with the stubborn, unglamorous commitment to try again tomorrow. Because here's what I've discovered in my own painful crawl out of this state. The freeze isn't permanent. It feels permanent because you're inside it, and from the inside there's no visible horizon. But it's a state, not an identity. It's something your nervous system is doing, not something you are. You are not the freeze. You are the person underneath it, the one who's been in hibernation, waiting for enough safety signals to risk emerging. And those safety signals? They don't come from fixing everything first. They don't come from finally being worthy or ready or healed enough. They come from the act of moving itself. Movement creates safety. Action generates the internal evidence that you can trust yourself again. Every time you honor a need, even clumsily, you're depositing a small amount into the account of self-trust that's been overdrawn for so long. Eventually, with enough deposits, you reach a tipping point. The resistance starts to soften. The tasks feel less like scaling mountains. Your body begins to feel like something you live inside, rather than something you're trapped inside. This isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming human again. Messy, imperfect, inconsistent, but present. Actually here for your life instead of watching it from behind glass. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You don't need to wait until the fear subsides. You don't need permission from your anxiety or approval from your inner critic. You just need to do the next smallest thing, right now, in this moment. One action that moves you 1 millimeter closer to inhabiting your own existence. The room doesn't have to be clean. The inbox doesn't have to be empty. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to prove to yourself that you're still here, still capable of choice, still able to affect the physical reality around you. Start there. Start with one thing so small it feels almost insulting to call it progress. Do it anyway. And then tomorrow, do it again. Not because it will fix everything, but because it will remind your nervous system of something it has forgotten, that you are not prey, waiting for danger to pass. You are a person who can move through the world, who can meet your own needs, who can build a life worth inhabiting. The door was never locked. You just forgot how to reach for the handle. Reach now, even if your hand is shaking, especially if your hand is shaking. That tremor is not weakness. It's your system beginning to thaw. Let it.